Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Hiraide Toshie. My mission is to introduce the attractiveness of Japanese sake broadly to the world. And then now the wine tourism is very successful for France to accept a lot of tourists. And then they attract so many number of tourists to France, and then we would like to emulate that. And so today we are joined by the 3 brewers who have contributed very much for internationalization of sake. From my side, the brewer of Urakasumi, the president of Saura, Mr. Koichi Saura. And also from the brewers for Horaisen, the Sekiya breweries companies, the president Takeshi Sekiya. And the brewer for Tengumai, the Shata brewery companies, president Kazunari Shata, are joining us today. The sake from these 3 breweries are already been prepared in front of you. Later, there will be some explanations about these sake from the brewers, and also as for the nibbles, today's topic from Japanese sake to world sake. The nibbles were chosen to show you that the overseas ingredients matches very well with the Japanese sake. So ham and cheese are there, so please enjoy them. Help yourself. And so please listen to the discussion while enjoying the sake and also nibbles. First of all, after this, we would like to show you the strategy of bringing sake overseas, the promotion. Those are led and pioneered by these brewers. For Japanese sake to be drunk widely overseas, we have to ask the licensees of handling the alcoholic beverages to be familiarized with Japanese sake in the first place. Only 2% of Japanese sake is exported right now in terms of monetary value. That's 11 billion yen or so. And then France, the value is 800 billion yen. That is the value of exports of France. And then Japanese sake is enjoyed as a kind of table wine, and just like wine in France. So we can recommend Japanese sake to those who have enjoyed wine during the meals. We hope that the experts of alcoholic beverages to be familiarized with Japanese sake so that they can talk positively about Japanese sake. And then we used the Discovery Channel, and then we compiled a program on a Discovery Channel. And then this is a part of the effort led by the Ministry of Agriculture. And then the Japanese sake breweries, more than 90% are small and medium-sized companies. So we need to have a leadership by the government and the entire Japan to promote this. So I would like to show you the DVD for excerpt from the Discovery Channel. I hope you are amazed by this. The world oenologist extolled Japanese sake, and they referred to the good matching and pairing with the food. And then during the awarding ceremony, the champion, Mr. Kitaya, from Yameshi, Fukuoka Prefecture, and Mr. Sam Harrop, the executive of this competition, asked about the location of the brewers. Such an exceptional quality sake can be brought to the world. And now I would like to introduce to you the brewers today. with us. All of these three gentlemen are my fellow members of bringing sake to the world. And then just you saw the wine competition, international wine challenge, which is the biggest in the world. And then we wanted to establish the Japanese sake division. And then the young brewers leader have been supporting that. And in 2007, this Japanese sake division started. And then Furagasumi's Saura, President Saura is here. He was the chairperson of that, the Young Brewers Associations. And then there is the booth over there, which shows you what kind of activities is underway. And then there is an application of the mobile phone, and then that we can take the pictures of the sake bottles. And then, based upon that bottle picture, there can be the list of the sake and explanation about that. There is a video for that.
宮城県塩釜市。古くから物流の拠点として、また漁港として栄えた港町です。港を見下ろす高台に立つ塩釜神社。平安時代の初め、今から1200年ほど前にはすでに人々の信仰を集めていました。サウラの創業は1724年と言われています。以来、塩釜神社にお神酒を奉納し続けてきました。代表銘柄は裏霞。原料米は米の名産地でもある地元宮城県のお米を主に使います。洗米から水切りまでの工程は厳しいくらいに正確な時間配分で行われます。受け継がれた技と確かな経験による酒造りがサウラの特徴です。隣接する浦霞酒ギャラリーは宮城県内限定のお酒や酒器などを展示販売しています。利き酒カウンターではお酒の試飲もできます。塩釜港で水揚げされるマグロやカキなど豊富な海の幸。地域の食文化に合う酒造りを続けています。
Mr. Saura, please explain about your breweries and also your activity to bring sake overseas. Thank you very much. I am the president of Saura. First of all, let me talk about something sake that we are serving to you. Urakasumi Zen Junmai Ginjo. This is one of the most important product for us. And then this is a pioneer of this kind of ginjo sake. It was introduced some 40 years ago. And then we are located in the harbor town, and then there is a rich and a bounty of natural ingredients, including fish. And so the nibbles, some of them are unique nibbles today, but the seafood is a very good pair of this sake, I believe. The applications, what you just saw is from the application. And then what I want to emphasize is everything that you saw. When you enjoy sake, not only sake, but also the history and the culture behind it and climate behind the sake making. If you understand that part too, you can enjoy even more about the sake you drink. And so I think use the application is a very good way to understand the background of sake. And then this image is very powerful, I think. Mr. Saura is the head of the development of the Association of Sake, and then you are a representative of the industries. And then what about your effort overseas? Is there any activities you want to share with us? Of course, there must be many activities you are involved. From 1999, for example, in Boludo, Vinexco, we had an exhibition out there. But first, our focus is to introduce sake in general. And then we developed our activities at the international challenge. And we had a connection with the London market, and then several times every year I visit London and to promote not only the sake in general but also our sake. Having a strong connection with a distributor in local market. That is very important, and then it takes time to introduce the sake to the local market. This kind of down-to-earth effort works very much.
I hesitate to say is in front of him. However, from the very beginning, he was very enthusiastic in promoting sake at the IWC headquarters people, and he was able to establish a very good relations. Wine, there are 12,000 brands to take part in IWC, and last year 325 brands of sake took part in IWC. Compared to wine, the number is much less, but IWC executives do place much importance in sake, and this may be attributable to his personality and his network. And now the young youth group retires at age of 45, and Mr. Sekiya is the current president of the youth group of sake. And before having him the chance to speak to you, let's look at his label in the application.
Aichi Ken Shitara町。愛知県北東部に広がる三河山間地域の中央に位置する山里です。名物はしし鍋、鹿肉のソーセージ、川魚の甘露煮など。正月2日に行われる津具花祭りは、多くの舞や神事が夜を徹して行われます。関谷醸造の創業は1864年。代表銘柄は蓬莱泉です。蔵の中は明るく開放的。フロアには巨大なタンクが埋め込まれ、伝統の技と近代的な設備による酒造りが行われています。 隣接する店舗では商品の購入も可能です。本社蔵からさらに山奥に行くと大きなトンネルが。大きく頑丈な鉄扉の中を奥に進むといくつもの熟成用のタンクが並んでいます。1年を通して一定の温度・湿度が保てるトンネルがお酒の熟成には最適な環境なのです。トンネルのそばには吟醸工房があります。ここでは通常の酒造りのほかにお客様の好みに合わせたオリジナルのお酒も作ることができます。工房内の販売店では商品の購入も可能です。四季の変化に富むこの地で季節に合わせたお酒を作り続けます。
皆様 Ladies and gentlemen, please also taste sake while listening to the presentation. You can also enjoy the snacks to go with sake. We have raw hams and cheese, and we have marmalade to try. Surprisingly good match with sake with marmalade can be enjoyed with you. Since 2011, I've been a coordinator for a program of Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and we invite consul generals and ambassadors to open up a lecture session and workshop for Japanese sake, and we have them enjoy sake together with these to go with you. Mr. Sekiya, thank you for waiting. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sekiya from Horizon. Our brand is Horizon Ku that is served for you today. Because we have very soft water, the taste also is very soft on the palate. And before bottling, the sake is matured for a year, so the taste is very complex, but it's very round on the mouth. This is a ginjo, but you can also see a good match with any meal. For example, as was just shown on the videotape, actually we prepared this in the last minute. It was at the end of the year. Actually, we also take part in farming, and our side is very much in the mountainous region of Aichi, with people, young people moving and with a community consisting of elderly population, leading to an unattended rice fields. And we have 22 hectares of rice field. That means we make more than 10 or 20% of the rice we use in these rice fields. We harvest in summer, so we wish it was better if we could have the video also in the summer. And next time we would hope to have you come visit us during the summer as well. Yes, so we will keep that in mind for future development. Thank you. What about your efforts overseas? Yes. We relatively focus more on Asian countries than Europe and USA. We have a long history with dealing with Hong Kong for years, and like Singapore, Hong Kong is a gateway to Asian countries where much information is gathered, China is expected to grow as a big market, and Hong Kong is also a gateway, a doorway to China. So we hope to keep a good ties with Hong Kong. And there's no tariff in Hong Kong. Even with high quality brands, the prices are very reasonable. The customs clearance procedure is very convenient. So Hong Kong is, for us, a good market with much potential to further grow. Thank you. People from Hong Kong, when they visit Japan, we have many such people, and when they look at these videos, they may be interested to visit the brewer, and we hope to have more of such Hong Kong tourists interested in visiting brewers. And now I'd like to invite Mr. Shata from Shata Shuzo. He is a member of the youth group of sake, a vice president when we started the sake sector of IWC. He really was involved in actual administration and procedures. He was very much committed. And let's first of all look at the video before we invite him to speak.
石川県白山市。市の南部には富士山、立山と並び日本三名山に数えられる霊峰白山を有しています。古くから山岳信仰の対象とされ、2000年以上の歴史を持つ白山姫神社は全国2000社以上の白山神社の総本宮です。白山を水源とする県内最大の河川手取川。その流れは日本海へと注ぎ、流域には緑豊かな田園地帯が広がります。山沿いの剣地区で毎年10月初旬に行われる蓬莱祭りは800年以上も受け継がれている奇祭です。名物は日本海に面した三河地区で作られるフグのぬか漬け。九谷焼など伝統工芸の盛んなこの地方では美しい酒器の数々も作られます。シャタ酒造は白山のふもとに広がる田園地帯の中にあります。古くは水車による菜種油採取を行い、多くの水車を持つことからシャタを名乗るようになったとも言われています。酒蔵の創業は1823年。白山の雪解け水と良質のお米が出会うこの地で酒造りを行ってきました。蔵の歴史を伝える生小兵衛。以前の蔵の塀がそのまま残されています。代表銘柄は山灰仕込み純米酒天狗米。きめ細やかで膨らみのある酒を作るため手間暇は惜しみません。米のうまみを味わえる酒を作り続けます。
Mr. Shata, once again, thank you very much. I am Shata from Tengumai. The video that you just saw, compared to other brewers, we have more time spent on our site. This was prepared by a group from Ishikawa Prefecture. They tended to focus more on the locality when they prepared this video. The sake that we are presenting you today is called Gorin. The main brand we produce is Tengumai. We use Yamahai. That is a special way of culturing the mold, and it is thick of taste. Gorin is a new brand started in 2006. It has a good balance between umami and acidity, and this goes well with the meals you eat. Please try it with cheese and ham. Also, when it comes to activities overseas, even before I joined the company for over 20 years, we have been exporting sake to United States. And more recently, we focus more on overseas experts. And close to a decade ago, I was involved in establishing the sake section of IWC. We had a full-fledged launch 3 years ago. And until this term, we were able to double our export volume. We export to Singapore, USA, and China. As for Singapore, normally when you export to overseas, you use Japanese affiliated trading firms and export our products to where the Japanese food ingredients are being dealt with. But for Singapore, we use a local company as an importer dealing with wine and cheese. This is a unique channel of exporting sake, so this provides us with a new opportunity. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Shata. The Japanese sake section of IWC was established years ago, and what really we wanted to accomplish was that people used to drink wine and whiskey, and we wanted to provide high quality sake to those who trade wine and whiskey locally. And as I have mentioned before, more than 90% of the brewers are small-scale industries from the local community. For them, exporting to overseas is not easy because of very barriers, including language and culture. And many countries establish a tariff, so the actual price of sake will be increased by several fold compared to the price available locally. In order to add added values, you need local dealers dealing with the branded wine who know much about the local market. Otherwise, sake will not go global, and that's why we want promoting sake with that IWC sake section. And this apps that we have just shown you as example, at the moment for Japanese sake expert, when label is in Japanese, or most cases a sake label is in Japanese. Wines from France and other countries, if experts read the label, you can get some information about the contents. The label really tells you the story of what's inside a bottle. But if a sake label is in Japanese, you cannot speak to the wider audience unless he or she knows in Japanese. And as a part of Ministry of Agriculture program, we are trying to develop local talents overseas, and we wanted the label to speak to the consumers using the current technology. The 3-minute video that you just saw is a condensation of lots and lots of information. when a label is processed in this manner, then together with the sake bottle, with the label, you can also communicate the information behind. So this is one example that we wanted to share with you. And here we have a developer of this app, and I'd like to invite the developer with it, Ms. Oka. Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. My name is Sagato. I am just a sake lover, and thanks to the ties we have with them, this is still in the work in process, and we use the image recognition technique based on which we are providing a service to read the label. If you could look at this display, this is an iPhone screen. You switch the button, you switch on the camera. It's difficult to focus because I'm doing this in air. Once the focus is on, sorry, the live demonstration sometimes leads to an error like this. There are different mobile phones available in the booth, so you can really try with different phones. And what happens is that you would read the label, and the file is selected, and this is what you're supposed to get. In the booth, it works fine, so if you could just try. It's not just the label information, but lots of other information can be read in English for details. And as some of the images that you saw earlier can also be seen through this app. So if you're interested in a particular sake brand, we hope that those people may be interested to visit the local brewer as well. Thank you very much. Do you have any particular episode of difficulties in this development? Well, it's easy to see in the two-dimensional, but it is on the curved surface. It's very difficult to read. With the help of people concerned, we had many trials and errors, and hope to read more and more labels from different brewers. We need to improve our technology so that this is a convenient app for you to use. When these sake bottles are exported and when the consumers have them on the table, you can read this on your mobile phone, and while you are reading the information on the screen of your mobile phone, you can enjoy drinking sake, and you may say that let's go visit this site, or let's try this cuisine locally in Japan. So the export of sake will not end there, but that could also provide more opportunities as a bigger market. I hope that will be what happens. And now we have 3 brewers representing each locality and local community. I really hope that you would know more about events and efforts that they are engaged in. They are making contributions to the local communities. So perhaps you can talk more about your local communities that you're visiting, Mr. Sakura.
Okay. If we watch these applications and the video in the applications, the exporting of Japanese sake has grown very rapidly in recent years. But what we typically hear is that because the label is written in Japanese, the ordinary drinker would not know what it says. So it should be improved how it shows the labels. And as was mentioned, the 90% of brewers are small-sized companies, the top 10 brewers account for 50% of all the production of the sake. So there are so many small players, and then it will be difficult for each of them to work on this labeling translation individually. So in our effort to increase the export, there are some things that we can do ourselves, but as a bigger picture, we would like to have a big campaign kind of things to deepen the understanding of the people overseas about Japanese sake. And in the industry associations, we are discussing how we can make it easier, the labeling, to be understood by foreigners. And we are studying that too. And as was mentioned, Ms. Hiraide is taking a lot of initiatives in education and also promote Japanese sake in overseas by the Japanese people who have been dispatched to overseas. But it takes time. So with the help of this kind of applications, we can fill the gap of the communications. I strongly hope that this application will be used more widely, having a bigger list of sake. Now, there are 1,500 to 600 brewers in Japan, and 40% of them, slightly over than 600 brewers, have or are exporting sake to overseas. I don't know whether this figure is big or not. They are growing, but in order to grow it even further, we need to have an infrastructure such as the application. And in Miyagi Prefecture, there are 25 brewers, and then only half or so, or less than half, are active about exporting sake. In order to increase this, the overall effort and infrastructure development will be necessary. Thank you very much. Yes, not only for the export, but now we will have the Tokyo Olympics in coming years. We need to increase the inbound tourist, and this is a nationwide effort. So for those who have come from overseas, while they were in Japan, this application can be used widely. Brewers for generations. Mr. Saura, you are 13th generation. Mr. Sekiya, you are 7th generation. And Shata-san, 8th generation. Yes, like them. They have been over generations. Their child and their grandchild will also be involved in sake making. So you are representing your local communities and local regions. And let me go back to what we just discussed about the local features. Okay, this local sake is closely related to the local community because the ingredients are rice, so the agriculture are inseparable from sake making. Especially the rural agriculture, there are an issue of aging, and industry is waning. So we help them to grow and keep the agriculture in a rural area, and also the sake brewery can play a very important role in that effort, I believe. And not only about the sake rice, but also I think you are doing as well. You are making the rikyu liquor as well as the plum-based sake. And also the sake tourism is a kind of a buzzword. And beyond that, the agricultural or green tourism, the sake making can be associated with these other types of tourism. So we can produce rice and also we can make sake. Doing both will increase the attractiveness. And then I hope that the other breweries would also be interested in these activities that will attract non-Japanese tourists and bring then energy to the rural Japan. The brewers we also involved in selling sake, so this can also add some uniqueness in this industry. We can contribute greatly to bring the energy to the rural Japan as an industry. When we talk about the export of Japanese sake, we may think that this is just to sell Japanese sake in overseas market. And then how much money we can make, that might sound very important, but that itself is not so interesting. So what I want to emphasize is that by exporting, bringing sake outside of Japan, we can also introduce the rural area of Japan, the rural cultures. There are not so many people overseas who have a good understanding of Japanese sake. We are trying to develop them, but into the future, you would see some the possibilities and the perspectives on that aspect. French wine, half are exported, and that brings 800 billion yen into the country. And then 80 million tourists are visiting France as opposed to 13 million in Japan. So that's more than 4 times in France. So people are familiarized with France and French culture, and they pay money for that. And I think that the quality-wise, Japanese sake is as good as wine, and now there is a strong support from the Japanese government. So I think it is really possible to bring sake overseas. And Shata-san, what is your local activities and what is the challenge in doing that? When we go overseas, we explain about the sake, and the locality and regionality is also very important. I am asked where I am from, and our production is in Haksan area, like Bordeaux or Bourgogne. In wine, the locality is very important. And looking at Ishikawa, where I'm from, on March 14th, Ishikawa will have the service of Shinkansen bullet train. And from Tokyo, the Ishikawa will be a much more convenient place to go. And in Tokyo area, there is an active PR of Kanazawa, and even before the start of the bullet train service to Ishikawa, we are doing a lot of campaigns to attract many more people. We need to bring Japanese sake to overseas, but on top of that, we want to invite a lot of non-Japanese tourists to our local area. This is also important. And Ishikawa, there is, under the leadership of President Nakamura of the local Brewers Association, we have a campaign of Sake Marché. We invited 10,000 visitors from nationwide last year, and then we want to invite 20,000 this year. In November, we will have such an event, so I would like to invite you too. Mr. Shata, you are a member of the steering committee, so you are working very hard for the success of that event. Yes, many breweries are working very hard, even harder for the associations than for their own sake makings. Yes, they are contributing very much to the local community. And then even when sake is really popular around the world, they would not hollow out the industry. They will keep treasuring the local community and the rural area. Now we are approaching to the time to close the session. Thank you very much for coming to join us in this session from Japanese sake to world sake. Japanese sake is from rice. The rice is polished and using another blessing part of Japan, water. To come up with 1 cup of sake, we need 10 times as much of water. And for the people who live in desert area, it might be unbelievable. And sake is such a blessed drink. And then the sake also reflects the very delicate sensibility of Japanese people, like how to keep the yeast in good quality, and also the craftsmanship of the brewers are the condensed in the final product of sake. We needed to keep communicating this wonderful nature of sake. And then we needed to also learn from the particularities of the local cultures overseas so that we can adapt the sake so that people around the world can fully enjoy and taste sake. We would like to keep working on that. And also, as you saw in the film, the sake is difficult to produce in mass volume. We cannot double the production volume next year, for example, because most of the ingredients are limited in terms of the availabilities. So those values and sense of values have to be communicated in a very good way. So that we can add some sense of values to the Japanese sake rice as well. And then based upon the exchange of sake, I hope that the people are more interested in local Japan. And also the more people overseas would like to know more about the local produce in Japan. Beyond just spreading sake around the world, we want to attract the more people and more types of interest in Japan that will benefit the entire nation of Japan. The brewers want to contribute to the local communities, and I think that part would also be helped by these activities. This is a time-consuming, little by little kind of effort. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to talk in front of you, and I am very happy that many of you are joining us to talk about sake. Thank you very much. And I strongly hope that you will keep loving sake, because sake tastes good, and sake has a lot of potential to invigorate the rural community of Japan. I would like to have your continual support. Thank you very much.